Welcome back to After Credit Reflection. My name is Nolan, and today I have a special guest on the episode. It's my dad. He watched the Odyssey with me and my mom, and we're just going to talk a little bit today, get some insight from a film lover for many years. So, throughout this film, did you did you enjoy this film?
Yeah, I think the film was great. It's Christopher Nolan. It's hard to go wrong. He's a legendary director and legendary filmmaker. Yeah, I thought it was beautifully shot. Thought the cast worked well together. We can talk about that a little later if you want. But yeah, it was a great film. Did not feel like it was too out of line.
I do agree. I think that Christopher Nolan is one of the best filmmakers of the 21st century. I'd say that he's made movies that are going to inspire for generations to come, including some films that have jumped off comic books. For instance, the Dark Knight trilogy. He made those films, and those films still resonate with fans both of the Dark Knight and just film lovers. Uh, Mainly because of Heath Ledger's performance of Joker. Do you think that there is anybody who performed of that caliber in this film, The Odyssey?
I don't know. It's hard to compare the Joker to anything because it's such a unique performance, and it's been 18 years since he was done with it, and it's still held up as one of the greatest performances and greatest transformations ever in film. So it's really hard to compare a comic book film with a 2,700-year-old book film.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah,
But I think everything stood out. I think John Leguizamo's performance really stood out in this film. I think that he was the old man. I'm not remembering his name right off the top, but I think his performance really stood out as one that held the film together uh, because his character kind of branches every other film.
Yeah. And as a film lover, have you seen many films like this? Not just from Christopher Nolan, but throughout the entirety of film. Have you seen any films that have kind of matched up to not necessarily the length in movie, but the performances themselves, like the commitment to words?
Yeah. Again, it's really hard to compare because it's such an epic, well-known story. You could compare it to um, the Ten Commandments. It's probably on the same scale. Charlton Heston played in that one. You're talking grand scale movies with a lot of extras. Um, Dunkirk is a great story. Again, Christopher Nolan did that one. Um, Saving Private Ryan for realism is right in there. Um, there's lots of really, really great films. I try not to compare apples to apples because everyone's doing something different.
Yeah.
Nolan definitely has proven with this film, though, that he can not only do the comic book superhero action crazy stuff as he did with Tenet and um, some of his other films, but he can also take a classic story and hold true to that story all the way through the film.
Yeah. And I agree. I think that Christopher Nolan does do a very good job of using both scripts as kind of like prose and poetry, like telling a story, and this synonymous, maybe harmonious way of bringing these characters to life in this movie.
Sure.
Was there any other performances that stuck out to you?
I think Robert Pattinson did a good job. He played an especially kind of bad dude. Um, he's kind of been in a hero arc for a long time since Twilight films and the Batman film. And he generally, I'm not as familiar with his work as some of the other stuff. Of course, Matt Damon playing a hero is not that difficult for him to do. and he's grown as an actor. I still remember him and Ben Affleck winning the Oscar for Good Will Hunting, and how excited they were, and they were just kids, and it's really been a treat for me as a film lover to see his whole career kind of just build to this film.
Yeah, I started out with Matt Damon in Ocean's 11, which I covered a couple weeks ago on my channel. Uh, I haven't really been following his career. I mean, throughout my life, I've seen the Jason Bourne movies. I've seen a few different films. I've yet to see Good Will Hunting. That's on my watch list. But um,
Again, I mean, this thing's important to note that this is not an exact retelling of the book. The book's been translated so many different times with people putting in their own translation arcs and stuff. So you need to approach this film in such a way that you're really looking for the core of the story instead of an exact retelling. Like if you're going in expecting an exact retelling, you're going to be disappointed.
yeah,
Because it's just not there. It's not possible to do a 500 or 600 page book in 3 hours. You just can't do it. And Homer is a book that everyone has had access to through schooling typically, but everyone's heard of the Odyssey in some form in their lives. So he had a lot of heavy lifting to do, and I think he did a really really good job. I think the cast was incredible. Um, Christopher Nolan knows his cast, and he keeps cast in the same films. He always casts some of the same people because he trusts them. And in this instance, he really needed to trust people because this was his biggest budget he ever had. And so he brings people in that he trusts and knows they can do a good job. If you have a chance, go see it in IMAX. If not, find the biggest screen possible and watch it because it has to flow through the screen.
over all the movies you've seen in your life, when it comes to word of mouth versus kind of this social media pump of uh, trailers and everything, because the Odyssey trailer, the last one that was posted, is one of the most disliked trailers of all time. Do you think that social media has kind of ruined filmmaking in a way that now people trust more about what's said on social media about a film before they see the film? And I like what Christopher Nolan did, where he didn't allow influencers of any kind to come see the premiere because he didn't want that to be spread. He didn't want reviews to go out early. Do you think that was a smart move by Nolan? And then the previous question, do you think social media has kind of,
Sure. I don't know that it has ruined the reputation. I think it depends on how it's used. I think social media has a role to play, but I also think that not everyone on social media needs to have an opinion about everything that happens in the world. And I'll kind of leave my social opinion or social media opinion at that. I think sometimes it's too much coverage and too many opinions. And so you listen to so many different voices, you don't really make up your mind by itself. Christopher Nolan is an old school guy. I still don't think he even has a smartphone. Um, he's very old school, and he goes in again with a cast that he trusts, with a script that he trusts, and he does his work. I mean, shooting a film in 2026, 2025, 2024, whenever it was shot on IMAX film is unheard of anymore. Um, and so I think he's old school, and I think he cares less than people want him to care, if that makes sense.
yeah,
He's Christopher Nolan. He's going to make great films. That's his job. It's like Steven Spielberg in his heyday, or George Lucas, any of those guys, the films that they create are going to be great
yeah,
films. I think that people who walk into this film, some of them are going to be, because of the characters that are in it and mentioned in some of the uh, trailers for it, are going to expect it to be like, it's going to pick up where, like, the movie Troy stopped. It's just going to pick up from there and go on. This movie is not about a particular battle or a particular fight or a particular hero. It's really Matt Damon's character trying to get home, and he wants to get home as quickly as he possibly can, and he's faced with many obstacles. Again, we can talk about the film and book. There's some vast differences between them.
And speaking of the best scenes, do you think that this film will be up for Oscars, and which category do you think it would be?
I would be surprised if it wasn't up for an Oscar. Um, I think Christopher Nolan does the work outside of the filming, so he really walks in prepared and ready to do the film the way he wants to do it. I don't know that Oscars are in his mind. I think any filmmaker that goes in thinking, I want to win an Oscar with this, has the wrong motivation. I don't believe that Nolan ever has that motivation when he goes in. He wants to make a great film, and because he makes great films still win awards. People, I mean, we can have a debate maybe closer to Oscar season on what gets nominated and whether or not it should be. If you want to do that, I'd have to come back. But yeah, I think you're looking at Best Picture, Best Director. Casting in it was perfect, so I think it could really be up for the second time casting is actually awarded. I think this casting was perfect. Tom Holland did a great job. Robert Pattinson did a great job. John Bernthal was a standout in his role. And then, of course, you have Matt Damon playing Odysseus. And then just the characters that were around him doing their work. Because I think any great character actor or any great lead actor knows that he has to stand out while being part of a group. And I think Matt Damon's Odysseus did a really good job of trusting not only the men in Odysseus' group, but also the men he had acting with him. Yeah. It really showed that they knew each other and they trusted each other.
Without spoiling too much, I don't like doing spoilers, but without spoiling too much, what do you think is going to be the most difficult part of this film for somebody who's probably not expecting to see as much as there was in the past?
I think the core story is there, like we talked about. But I think that it's changed enough. Again, it's hard to say the changes without giving some spoilers. I think this film was a little darker and a little more human than the original work. And I've read multiple translations of the original work. This was very much Odysseus's struggle. In the movie, it's sort of that way in the book, but Odysseus's struggle is different in this than it is in the book. I think that's the best way I can put it. There's less, should I say, divine influence in the movie than there is in the book. And I think that's just with the retelling. Nolan decided to look at Odysseus from a different perspective than Homer did or the translations have. Again, it's been translated many, many times, so it's really hard to nail down the best translation for Homer's work.
How about that Trojan horse that they use in the film? I know you've seen Troy. Do you think that the Trojan horse that's used in the Odyssey, do you think it's an improvement over the one in Troy, or do you think that it's just a different interpretation?
I think it's a different interpretation. I mean, the one in Troy, I don't know if in post you can put a picture of it up. The one in Troy was very much made from ships. You could tell that it was put together from parts of ships, if that makes sense. You can see the parts of the ship. And you can kind of get a scale of how massive it is. In this film, I don't think it's spoiling anything. It's a much smoother and well-built horse, but it's also a practical one. I mean, they built the full-size one and they buried it in the sand. So the actors that are in there are in there, and it's just kind of taste. I mean, you were kind of in Troy. They needed a way to get into the city, and they knew that if they looked like they left and built this idol, they would take it into the city. This one, same thing. They took it into the city. So it's a way to get in. I think this one looked much more refined and everything. Again, no one's interpretation of what's going on.
Yeah. Do you think that the Odyssey is a good representation of the hero's journey, or is it one of the most classical
I think it is. I mean,
representations?
if you talk to a filmmaker who's trying to make films about a hero's journey and they haven't read the Odyssey, um, or at least some of the Odyssey, or Cliff noted the Odyssey, something with the Odyssey, you're going to miss the core of a hero's journey. Because the nice thing about the heroes, Odysseus, and the heroes, all of the people in the Odyssey story, they all have really big flaws. Um, and Christopher Nolan did a great job of bringing those flaws to light and holding on to the core of the story without it getting so off kilter. You're like, we wanted to go world, but we watch it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which he could have easily done, but he didn't. He held to the core. Again, he trusts his cast. He's worked with this cast in the past. He does not work with actors that he doesn't trust. So if you get the opportunity as an actor to be in a Christopher Nolan movie, you know he trusts you.
So, is there any story you want to see adapted by him that you think, oh wow, this would be an amazing Christopher Nolan movie he could really tell this?
Sure,
Whether it's classical or whether it's a modern day film.
sure. I would love to see um, Christopher Nolan do a Marvel movie, um, and to for Disney Marvel to allow him to just do his thing. I don't think that will ever happen. I don't know if he would be even interested in doing a superhero movie. Probably not. Um, but he's going to be able to ride on Odyssey for quite a while. I mean, it's got a 120-day guaranteed theater run, or yeah, so it's in for 4 months. It's going to be in the theaters for 4 months, and it'll go up on streaming again. Um, and then you'll start getting the releases of it with special editions, maybe. Um, Again, the making of this film is going to be a great show to watch, just to watch the work that he did and all of that. As far as classical stories go, I mean, judging from what he did with this one, he can take a new story and make it work. Um, yeah, but I mean, he could do some stuff in ancient Rome um, with some of the Caesars and do some of that work. That'd be great. He could do that really well. Um, but I think that him being old school helps him because people go to Christopher Nolan movies to experience something they don't experience at any other film. And he's the difference maker. You have the same actors in the other films, and it's not as powerful.
Yeah.
But when he's behind the camera doing his work, it's pretty flawless.
So, talking about all that, we talked about the good, we talked about uh, what Christopher Nolan could improve on. So, let's get to kind of the score out of 10. I usually do my reflections. I usually dive deep and I score it out of 10. For newer movies, I try and avoid spoilers unless I'm really excited about the film. Um, but this one, I can't really, I'm excited about the film, but I also can't really give much away because I'll be giving away a quality story. What is, what do you think is a proper score out of 10 for this film?
So for me, I mean, if I was to sit and do a score of 10 for a movie, I would consider the cast you put together, consider the script you were working with. I haven't read the Odyssey script. I would love to get hold of it and read it uh, and find out what was in there that wasn't, or how actors interpreted what they were doing, their motivations. Um, the cinematography is beautiful. Uh, Again, I think he did a really good job out of doing the core of the story. But I think I would probably be an 8.5, maybe 8.7, simply because he veered off some of the main points of the story and kind of did a different take, which is totally fine. It's not a bad. It doesn't ruin the story at all. But he did kind of veer off a little.
Yeah. Um, I would agree. I haven't read the Odyssey in a while. I should probably pick that up. But I think that out of this film, I think there were things that could be improved. Um, there were a few acting choices that I think were made. I know that there were reasons for those makings, like Tom Holland uh, calling Odysseus his dad instead of like a proper term that would fit back then.
Sure.
But there was reasoning behind that. Tom Holland did talk about that on the press tour. Uh, but it's just little stuff like that. And so I'd give it probably 7 to 9.0, just because there were things that could have been improved on. Um, it's not the worst Christopher Nolan movie. I don't know if there's any worst Christopher Nolan movies, but or any bad Christopher Nolan movies because he is a quality filmmaker. I think Tenet was probably ranked among people's Christopher Nolan lists as kind of the worst one because he had to fit so many books one one movie.
Sure. It would have been maybe better if he just did something.
Yeah, or did the series and made quality films out of it.
He is an old school filmmaker and he makes films for fans because he wants them to be able to go to the theater and do what film is supposed to do. It's supposed to escape and allow you to forget your problems, forget about the world, and just live within that world that he's created. And I think he did a great job with this film. Because it's so expensive to market and produce a film, I think a film like Obsession scares the studios to death. Because it's a film that is really word of mouth. There wasn't a big marketing budget. Uh, studios are already offering the guy that did Backrooms big contracts to do films. And uh, in some ways, I hope they don't take the big contracts and do films with big studios because studios require big investors. And big investors like to have things go their way, and they can sometimes speak with their pocketbook. I think if you're going to be an independent filmmaker, you need to make the film that you're going to make. Um, Kevin Smith was giving an interview, I think we shared it, where he's talking to a group of people, I think it was a Comic-Con or something, and he said, if you're a film writer, you already know what your film should look like. So write it, direct it, and get it out there because you're the only one that knows how your film is supposed to work if you're writing it. You need to be the one to direct it, and you need to hold on to that because no one's going to be able to tell your story better than you can on screen. And so, um, for independent filmmakers, get out there and make films because it's important. And the studios sometimes pull people back because they want money. What we need to see is streaming services, Netflix, YouTube, Amazon, Apple, all of those embrace those independent filmmakers and give them a platform to show their films. I'd love to see Netflix, Prime, and Apple pick 10 or 12 independent films a year and add them to their streaming. Um, they've got the budget, they can afford to lose the money. If it loses money, it may not lose money. And the only way to keep it going is for people to allow those independent filmmakers to make films outside of the studio system.
Yeah.
There is something, obviously, with the success that the Odyssey had opening weekend, there is something people still love about the old school filmmaking. And it's okay to do that. And if anything, the Odyssey shows the studios that it is marketable to not have a bunch of social media chatter about it, it is marketable to make a film to tell a good story and to allow directors to do their job and direct the movie and get the movie that they want. It'll be interesting to see if those creators sign studio deals if their next film will do it well. Because that's what's going to tell you if people like independent film or studio film. Because if those same storytellers tell stories with studios involved and they don't do as well, then that's going to say the audience wants more independent filmmakers. And they're kind of at that. They're kind of stuck in that map. Do you stay independent or do you go to the studio and risk having people not come to your film because it's a studio film?
Odyssey is in theaters now, and Spider-Man Brand New Day is going to be in theaters July 31st. Make sure you get your tickets for that. And this has been Nolan and my dad, and this has been After Credit Reflection.